Welcome to the CSR Journal. Today, we are joined by Royal Bank of Scotland Foundation, India. We have with us Mr. Pankaj Phatarphod, who is the Chairperson of RBS Foundation, India, and Mr. Sunil Kumar, who heads the Sustainability Wing at the Foundation, India. Welcome to the chat, sir. Mr. Kumar, we would like to know from you, what are the sustainability initiatives that your organization takes up?
We connect with issues that deal with gender equality, equitable development, and climate change. These are the issues that we connect with, and this is where we try to work and give a little bit back to the society.
Your organization essentially focuses on sustainable livelihoods. Tell us about the linkage between sustainability and livelihoods that you address.
Well, we're all familiar with the large number of people that live what has been defined as the below poverty line. It's also a fact that a very large number, estimated at about 300 to 400 million, who live in close proximity to forest, wetland and other ecosystems and are dependent on that. Now there's a very strong connect between the two. Historically, where there was the commons and the village panchayat ruled, so the villages looked at common resources that they were used to manage. Later on, over the decades, with changes in legislation, when private property took over, the commons, by way of land, grazing land, forest, land, water, these have become dysfunctional, and we do not have those traditional mechanisms which govern these. Okay, so now there is a need where we are able to establish a connect between the way that the communities harvest these resources. Okay, so the legislated means to do that is the eco-development committees, the forest protection committees. And we strive to work with these communities by reviving these forest protection committees so that we build a stakeholdership towards these ecosystems. So that's what we do in our livelihoods.
Mr. Phatarphod, we would like to know from you now, how do you ensure striking the balance between sustainability and your growing profits? How is that keeping environment in mind?
We want to be absolutely inclusive, and so it's inclusive for our customers. It's inclusive for our employees as well. So in that sense, if we look at near home India, if you look at, for example, spaces where we need to add more value towards, the farmers. If you're looking at women as an example, right, where we need to see how we can ensure that women are truly, giving value to what we call as our society, right? How can we do all of that? And if we do that well, then in turn it helps our business, right? So it's almost like a positive circle of influence where we are saying that, look, for us to be able to generate that wealth in a country, we need to ensure absolutely what we call in RBS as women and youth. And those are the two things that we do in sustainability. The other thing is about sustainable, right? And the fact that it's sustainable means it's both ways, right? So when we give something back, they in turn give it back to us in return, right? And as we start to see that circle of influence take through, then it's sustainable growth.
We would like to know, are you able to spend the mandated 2% CSR funds?
Absolutely, yes. And I think in that sense, I think government has been very helpful, right? Because even before we used to do that, but now with government focus in there, absolutely, that's the.
Has this mandate brought any kind of a difference to your CSR budget?
One is the fact that absolutely the 2% that we need to do, and that's helping us. I think the second thing is the fact that now everybody talks about CSR, right? Which otherwise was only a few that would speak. And I think we are seeing it more and more useful, because that's where now when we start to talk with NGOs, when we start to talk with self-help groups, when we start to talk with the government, all of them are now on the same wavelength, right? And that helps as well.
Talking to you, Mr. Kumar, would like to know, but what do you think wildlife conservation is a sector which is essentially ignored or is majorly ignored by other corporates while taking up or considering the CSR in their projects?
We live in difficult times, and there are so many challenges that we live with, so many of them so stark and visible that we live with. Those could be very basic as, how do we deal with the urban infrastructure? We need to improve infrastructure. Air pollution is bad. Education, literacy, healthcare. It's unending list of things. So I would guess probably in that list of things, wildlife could not be seen easily as a problem that we need to deal with. And also I will add that it's seen as wildlife is often seen as, as a standalone, as something good to do, as ethical. Whereas the bigger thing is, wildlife as an integral part of the environment has a very distinct role to play. That part is probably not very clearly seen and understood.
If I have to ask you, since you deal with this sector or you work in this sector, how much difference does it make to your work style?
Well, since employees are actually at the core of what we do, especially with our community initiatives, and we encourage employees, we also have a policy where we allow them to go up to 4 days in a year to work on the projects that we take up through our foundation. These are very popular with the employees. It allows them to connect with things that they do not see. Our employees who basically are used to Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, London, for them this has been the universe. They're all very bright young people who have fresh from colleges, but it's the other India that they see. So areas of wildlife, forests, areas rich in natural resources, something we're very popular with the employees.
Do you think, with this mandate, companies have started sticking to, touching the target of 2% and really forgetting, or they're somewhere missing on the real essence of CSR, which is not just spending money, but it is also about involvement, it is about contribution in all its sense. Do you think the mandate is turning us somewhere towards checkbook philanthropy?
Now, I will see it like this. The business firms are in the business of creating value for the society. So let's put it as the microeconomics part. And the state is concerned with the macroeconomics part, ensuring that there is basic good governance and everyone gets an opportunity to participate in that market. And what CSR has done is bridge these two. The firm manager and the representative of the sovereign state, the macroeconomics and the microeconomics, the CSR actually has bridged these two. And that's a good thing, because end of the day, going forward, when we see that we need to have a situation where the world continues despite climate change, we need to take very conscious actions. That can happen only when the markets, the business behaves responsibly and carries out all that is determined and laid out by the sovereign state. That's where CSR plays a good role. And I would still say that this is just the beginning of CSR. This is only the 3rd year, and things are settling down, these things are evolving, and there's an interface that the business has continuously with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and things are only getting refined further and further. So the concerns that you raised are valid, but they're all going to get addressed.
Currently, the system we have is you have to report about it, and even if you're not spending 2%, you have to answer why didn't you spend, right? But there's no penalization or anything. Do you think if there is a penalization, it will help, or do you think there should be stricter monitoring of this whole framework of CSR?
If you want to do CSR, then whether it's monitoring, that's anyway something that we will do any which ways, right? So I don't think from a regulation perspective it adds any more value. That's my sense, right? Because anybody who wants to do CSR will anyway do it, and do it in a manner that gets monitored, right? Will monitoring add more value? I'm not too very sure, right? Because one of the things that one can do, and as I understand, for example, if I write check to Prime Minister's Relief Fund, that's doing CSR, right? And that's just about writing check. So I'm not sure whether monitoring will add any more value. Okay. That's my take, but I don't know if Sunil has different view on it.
I will add to that, and I will say, if I'm in business and I'm in the business of, let's say, creating wealth for the society, I do it because I love doing it and it's my competency. Likewise, if CSR is encouraged, and I think the companies and firms will do better and better at that.
Do you think any kind of a tax relief would help encouraging more companies to be a part of it?
Well, things like tax reliefs and all are always welcome. Mm-hmm. And I think anyone in business would say that that's most welcome.
Right.
That's definitely yes.
And there have been many voices coming up which are saying, that corporates have been doing is transferring the money from the business to their own foundations, which are again, there's a question to the usage of it and all. So how would you like to, since you also have your own foundation, how will you like to answer that?
If you look at most of the foundations that are set up, most of these are under Section 8. Okay. Now they are completely open to scrutiny and governance,
right.
and that says it all.
Right. And
On the positive side, setting up a company like this, it helps the companies to invest their resources and strengthen the Section 8 companies or the foundations
Right.
to really build their capacity so that they're able to implement it more.
That's true.
If you also look at for the kind of additional money that is coming into the market, the development side through CSR is a lot of money. One really starts wondering, and I say it because I've been in the sector, is there a capacity to absorb that kind of money? So the capacities of the development sector, the non-government organizations also needs to be raised. So pending that, wherever companies are setting up foundations and building their capacities to do so, it helps them to implement the CSR better.
Coming towards an end of this conversation, I would like to know from both of you, please tell us briefly your definition on CSR.
I would say the CSR, let's leave out the mandated one, the legislated thing. I would say CSR is basically something that reminds everyone that as a citizen, we have a responsibility towards the wider society. And we are expected to be a good citizen who should not only conduct himself or herself responsibly, but also gives back to the society. And that I think is the CSR.
So
and earlier I also said it's a connect between the macroeconomics and the microeconomics, between the manager and the representative of the sovereign state. I see CSR that way. End of the day, say what is a country, what's a nation, what's a society? We are like the molecules together, part of that. We make that society. And so every molecule is expected to behave responsibly, and that's what CSR does.
My views are very simple, right? Do something right now, today, for better tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? Because if you look at what we are trying to do right now, that's not going to give us the benefit immediately, but that's going to absolutely ensure that our children and their children are well protected, right? So it's all about what we do today for tomorrow.
Right. Thank you so much for giving us your time and
Thank you
speaking
very
to
much.
us. Thank you, sir.